Good morning, everybody. Hope JNUC is going great for you. How's everybody's day 2 been so far? Excellent. Love to hear that. So today we're going to talk about transitioning to macOS onboarding, and I'd like to introduce two of my good friends here, Rob and Steve. They are from NetApp, and they are going to talk about their experience going through this. For any of you who have not gone through macOS onboarding, this will be a great walkthrough for you. Just quickly, a show of hands. How many of you are using macOS onboarding currently? All right, so we got a lot of people who could learn things here. Good luck, guys.
Can you guys fix the presenter screen? Cool. All right. Just go ahead.
Sweet. So everyone, my name is Robert. I'm obviously with NetApp. I've been there a year and a half now. I'm based out of our Ireland office from Cork.
Yep, and I'm Stephen. I've been with NetApp for close to 10 years now. I'm located out of the weird place called Portland, Oregon. And if you were here at the previous session, the Microsoft guys were saying that they were 8 and 9 hours apart. So are we, and we have about 2 hours each day where we get to collaborate, yeah. So, and there's a lot of people in here, so if you don't mind, we want to take a selfie with everyone in here. Show our bosses that we're working, not just the work.
That's the wives, by the way.
The wives, yeah. Ooh. All right, on 3, say cheese. 1, 2, 3, cheese. Thank you. All right. So, you are all here because you want to know about this onboarding solution, right? This new enrollment experience. As a precursor to all this, I want to mention that there are a lot of great solutions that are out there. Every environment is unique, and pick the one that works right for you. I'll talk a little bit here about where we started and to why we chose macOS onboarding through Jamf. We're not here to try and convince you, but hopefully we can help make that decision easier for you guys. So back in 2017 is when we set up the Jamf environment. And I was able to basically do that at my company. And really, at the time, it was really basic. It was just a plain old script. It ran silent. Users didn't really know much about it, other than their device was about to be managed. And then early 2018, that's when we started getting about 2,000 devices or so in the environment at the time. And we used Jamf Helper, right? It was just a quick way to say, hey, we're doing something real basic. And then as we talked to our Jamf experts, they told us about DEP Notify, created by Joel Rennick. It's a fantastic tool. If anyone here has used it, it's just a great tool. And it's really lasted us for probably about, 6 years now? And unfortunately, it hasn't really been maintained in the last 3 years. But in the meantime, there have been just a great number of great tools, right? DEP Notify, Splash Buddy is one of them, IBM Enrollment, Octory, Swift Dialog, and some of those tools, Set Up Your Mac by Dan Snelson, Baseline, and then obviously Jamf macOS onboarding, which was announced last year. And that's what we switched to as of, 2 months ago?
Roughly 2 months ago, yeah.
2 months ago, yeah. We didn't even finish the slides when we were still working on it, so. So why did we end up choosing macOS onboarding when there were so many other great tools out there? For us, there were a few criterias. One, something that was going to be actively developed, right? As I mentioned, DEP Notify had not been updated for about 3 years. It had been sunset, and I mean, honestly, we got a lot of mileage out of it. It was a really great tool. We also wanted something that had first-party support, right? If something was going wrong, the open source tools are great, but sometimes when you need something fixed in a pinch, you could really lean heavy on your Jamf support team. Something that's also natively integrated into Jamf, right? With our DEP Notify scripts, I think it was about 800 lines of code, something like that, with all the different security tools, configurations, policies that we had to apply. Also, while also trying to mention what the tools are, right? trying to give that transparency to our users. Ease of setup. At this point in our environment, I think we're close to about 6,000 devices now. Any kind of changes we need to make, we need it to be simple and easy. There's a lot of areas where we just don't want to have to go into a script and modify things if we're trying to train new people in our environment. We just need something that was just, you set up a few policies and you're good to go. And then lastly, a reliable user experience, right? We're getting 100 or so, few hundred devices every month that are enrolling, and we need something that just to be consistent every time. Something that is bundled with Jamf, something that we don't have to apply to the system after the fact, have to worry about updating packages when there's something new, and just that we can kind of set it and forget it. All right, I'll hand it over to Rob.
Sweet. So I'm going to talk about environment preparation. One of the things out of the box with macOS onboarding, if you simply enable it, it will initiate onboarding on all of your devices, right out the bat. Users will get, self-service will appear, and it will start to install. And there'll be nothing in the box, but self-service will load as if it's going to enroll again. So with that, you need to set up some exclusions first of all. So currently enrolled devices do not get macOS onboarding. To do the exclusions, the following items must be done. Create a smart group, identify the existing computers that have already been enrolled. You need to deploy a script that does an exclusion flag, and then deploy that policy that sets the exclusion flag, and then have a create extension attribute that maps to a smart group of systems that have run the exclusion flag. Okay, so step one, just create a smart group. A simple standard smart group that looks last enrollment, and it's based off the date you want to enable macOS onboarding. So keep in mind, if you have to push out dates, you may want to alter that date in that smart group. Step two, you want to have a script then that gets deployed to your systems. This is a custom script that we created. It's slightly different on the macOS onboarding documentation from Jamf. But what we figured out was it needs to run in the user context, not as root, because it's based on every user that's on the device. And because self-service logs in with a user, it has to be set for the user.
And there is a QR code at the end of the slides.
There is one, yeah.
So you can find that.
Step three, then you want to create a standard policy. Okay, so let it run on frequency once per computer. Check-in is recurring check-in. You want to have a silent. And it's based off the smart group that you just created to look at systems that have been previously enrolled. Following that then, you can create an additional smart group to look at the enrollment flag, okay? And then based on that then, you can create a smart group of that set to true or false, and you can add that then to your self-service policies, which will prevent re-enrollment of devices, okay? So just a quick recap, if anyone wants to get some pictures. You create a smart group to identify your existing systems. You have your script, you have your policy, and you have your onboarding workflow.
All right, so you've done all the prep work in terms of just scoping those devices, and now it's time to actually configure your policies. So to start with, you're going to have the policies you're going to be working on. I highly recommend not using the existing policies that you had before, but creating whole new ones. And you're going to set those to run once per computer. You're not going to have any triggers. The distribution method will be through self-service. And your scoping target will be all computers, and your exclusion is going to be that enrollment complete smart group, which again is the flag that you identified in the previous steps to prep your environment.
You add that to your excluded.
Because if you don't do that, every single user will see all these enrollment policies in their self-service. You don't want them to see that, so. All right, so from there, you go within the self-service settings within your Jamf console, and here is where you're gonna be able to add different items to your onboarding. You have options to do any policies that you have. If you have 500 policies in your environment, all 500 of them are going to appear in this list. Same with configuration profiles and applications. There we go. And basically the same UI is just with each of those different things. And then from here, you want to set the order of the operations. One thing that was really helpful for us as we set up these new policies was to add a 01, 02, 03 to however high it needs to be for your enrollment. Because it helps us understand within the policy screen, also within here, even if you have configuration profiles or apps, it's just a good, nice way to map out how you're going to be doing this so that no matter which window you're in, you have an understanding of what's going to happen. So highly recommend adding numbers to the order of operations. So step 4, this isn't mentioned in the documentation. Again, this is also included in the QR code at the end of the presentation. There's a really nice way that you can re-enroll, you can run a re-enrollment on existing devices. If for any reason you want them to run through that again, what you can do is the script will delete that self-service plist file, and it flushes the Jamf policies on the device. And then once this runs on the system, you can set up a policy for it. Once you've run it on the system, you have to quit self-service, and then you have to relaunch self-service. Because it's a self-service utility, it fights itself when you try to tell it to quit itself and then start up this other policy. I'm sure there's probably a more elaborate way that you can do that. But essentially, just this will help you rerun an enrollment. So. And then at this point, you've done everything, right? You have everything built out. You pray to the IT gods, and to quote Samuel L. Jackson, you hold on to your putts and you click enable. And it goes out to your environment. Now, what I will say is, despite all your best efforts, you will probably get a handful of users in your environment who will probably see the enrollment screen. It's probably going to happen. And for those who it happens to.
That's based on the system. When you deploy that policy to set the flag, it all comes down to devices aren't online, users on holidays, they don't get it, or are on extended leave before you enable onboarding. So you are going to get a small subset of users that go, hey, what the hell is this? But it's fine.
Buy them a beer, apologize. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it took us about 4 to 6 months to build this all out, I would say.
With everything else that we had going on plates and stuff, it took that long.
Yeah.
The slides were done quicker than it was to enable it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So it definitely takes time to make sure that everything's all buttoned up. So just to recap what you have to do in order to enable onboarding, you create your onboarding policies, you set up your configuration profiles, any applications that you want to be a part of, the enrollment, again, create new ones. You add your objects to macOS onboarding settings, and then you set those order of operations. Again, if you can set a precursor of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and set that up, it's really helpful. Re-enrollment, it's an optional item. We use it in ours. Our help desk team uses it quite a bit. And then enable it when you're ready. So to give you an example of what this looks like, it's not a complete what we do today. We did have to hide some things because we can't show you all of our security products, but we'll go ahead and run through this. So here, the device is enrolling, and we use Jamf Connect in our environment. Fantastic tool. If you're able to get it, definitely talk to your Jamf partners and at least try and get a demo of it. It's made a huge difference in our environment. From here, you go through any remaining setup assistance steps, and then from here, immediately the self-service app launches, and from here, this is fast-forwarded, obviously, but it starts up setting up all the policies and configs on the system, and then when it's done, you're at the setup complete.
Cool. So one of the big things I can't emphasize enough in macOS onboarding is test. Anything new that you get from Jamf, please put it in a test environment. Not to say that it's going to be bad out the box, but just test it. As what I said, once you enable it without any other settings, it's on all your devices. So please put it in a test environment. Second thing would be communicate. Communicate to your L2 teams or your regional teams or your onboarding team if if they look after new hires coming in, that the process is going to change. If you migrated from DEP Notify, it's certainly a different experience it is when you go to macOS onboarding. So communicate to them, do as much documentation as you can, videos, demos, whatever you can do.
Also talk to your Jamf support team.
Yes.
If there are things that aren't working in your test environment, you may even want to do a secondary test environment if you're too afraid to modify your current dev environment, you know.
Keep on top of your Jamf rep.
Yeah, talk to them if there are features that you want to see introduced, right? One of the things that wasn't available at the time was the ability to add additional text, right? And an additional comment on that as well is we felt within our company, right, we used DEP Notify to communicate all the different tools that are going on, what they're doing. We're really transparent, but having had Jamf in our environment now for 7 years now, coming up on, we felt at this point there was enough community knowledge about what was on there, and we have enough KBs that our users could reference. So we felt that let's get rid of some of that fluff and just show them we're doing stuff, it's installing on your system. If there's anything that has like notifications that you need to add, you can include that as part of your policies if you do want to show something. But yeah, I mean, it was definitely a shift and change for us.
Definitely. TurboNet Optimize. If you have a messy onboarding or you have loads of fluff that you don't need or you want to clean up your onboarding, now is your time to do it. You're going to put time into creating new policies, new workflows. Do it now while you can. Don't do it and then come back 6 weeks later or 6 months later and clean stuff up. Do it now. Yeah. That's what we did. We spent probably most of the 4 months cleaning up our Jamf environment before we even enabled it. Like setting up the policies for macOS onboarding, you could do it in a couple of days if you had to list everything you wanted to do, but take the time, clean up your environment, make it clean, make it slick, and we have a great experience now when it comes out to onboarding. It works.
I mean, not only that, it's easy for us to just know what's going on in our environment rather than showing our leadership scripts and pointing to the code of where things happen. It's a lot easier for them to digest policies instead.
It also makes it easier to hand it over to someone else new that comes into your team to hand here's macOS onboarding. Look after it. You know, they're not digging through lines of scripts and codes to figure stuff out. So.
Yep. Yeah, pretty quick for us to run through that. Here are the QR codes. One of them links right to Jamf's documentation, as well as Rob's GitHub. He has
any of the scripts and the images and the whatever else I had in the slide deck are all inside of the GitHub. So feel free to access. So, or find me on LinkedIn, ping me on LinkedIn, or yeah, I'm here.
We're ready for a Q&A.
There's no questions in 5 seconds. We're happy.
So for Q&A, I will be going around with a mic. Do me a favor, and as Rob and Steve are answering questions, just throw a hand back up so I can make my way back over to you.
Thank you. I was just wondering if there's any branding with this. I know in DEP Notify you can brand and put like company logos and things like that. I didn't notice if that was like that when you guys showed your installation box.
So when it comes to branding, one of the things that macOS onboarding you can do is you can brand the images, the applications that get installed, but you're kind of limited then to, like, it just takes the normal macOS branding for like your logo.
Yeah, so like in the DEP window, you would see like a logo, like a company logo.
Yeah.
I noticed it now that was onboarding.
Who's that? Yeah, no, you're kind of limited to what you can do. But I do believe in Self-Service Plus, which was announced yesterday, there is additional capabilities for branding.
Yeah, and obviously talk to your Jamf buddies about new features if that's something that you want to see.
Hey there. So I'm currently in the process of transitioning this myself, and one of the things I noticed is that there is a specific setting in the global section of Jamf to clear the policy logs on the computers that needs to be enabled. Otherwise, whenever you wipe it and try to go through the process again, it doesn't automatically do that. So we had to enable that. And then the other thing that we were kind of noticing is, like you said, sometimes it does pop up for some users. We have a couple like admins who want to prep machines, essentially like kind of turn them on, get them to the login screen, and let them sit there. And so what we ended up doing is instead of using a once per Mac or one per computer configuration, we did a ongoing configuration with an exclusion for apps, the computers that have that app already installed. Have you explored that workflow to see if that might work in your environment?
I can't say we have, no.
No, not yet, no. That's probably coming in the probably next rendition of us cleaning it up. But that's a good topic, though.
Okay. And then I just, one other issue that we ran into that maybe you saw is scripts. Like if we try to put a script, say caffeinate, at the beginning to keep the computer awake, it literally will not move on to the next thing in the list. And so
It will move on. We have company portal. So what happens is one of our stages is, at the early stages, it runs company portal. That will pop up to the user to enroll. It will continue on in the background installing like any other security agents that you have. And then when that finishes, it just continues onto the loop.
Yeah, and if
So,
you need...
and you can build out with scripts like with an extra Swift dialog message. It can prop that up while it's running in the background.
Yeah. One thing you could do too is if you're running a script that's part of a policy, you could say, for example, in a script, have it say sudo Jamf policy ID 123, and then throw the ampersand on it, and that'll background that process. And then if that policy happens to do a pop-up, that'll run without holding up the rest of the macOS onboarding experience. Yeah.
How you doing? I just had a quick question over here. We still use sites to differentiate between different departments in our environment. When you enable this just goes global no matter what happens, correct? Have you found an easier way to, let's say I have two of my sites, one has a policy sitting in, has one policy running there. Can we put those policies and make them only run on that site machine, or is it just
No,
all
once you
or none?
enable, it's global. It doesn't care what site it's in. Any Mac device that's managed, it runs on it. But you can play around with the exclusions for sites.
There are some things you can do within the macOS onboarding. So once the self-service app, it's going to load whatever that system is in scope for. So if you're able to, for example, do some kind of an inventory update before that self-service process kicks off, you may be able to do some kind of specific policy scoping so that one team or one site gets these policies versus another site.
But if you want them all
it's,
together,
but while it's running, once it's loaded into self-service, it can't add or remove anything from while it's being enrolled.
Awesome, thank you. That's pretty much what I was thinking. I wanted to test this when we get back, but I wanted to see if you guys do that first. Thank you very much.
Yeah, definitely test it, do it in dev.
Hey, I'm right next here. Since you've been doing this, what would be the #1 feature or capability that you would want to see in the next evolution of this Jamf onboarding?
Probably more touched off of branding, additional.
Besides branding. As I just mentioned,
Not have it on all systems when you enable it. That's probably the one thing.
yeah. I'm not gonna lie, when we pressed that button, I was really nervous. But anyways, no, as I mentioned before, there's no like dynamic like adding and removing of items while it's running. That would be something nice to see. For example, some environments you may still need to show your users what an application is, right? If you're throwing in CrowdStrike in your environment as an example, explain to them what an EDR tool is, what antivirus stuff it does on the product, you know. That would be something nice to be able to dynamically update that while it's enrolling. But again, go to ideas.jamf.com, submit that feedback. Again, that's why we chose this solution, was because it's a first-party product, right? We could talk right to Jamf about it.
There's one thing I want to call out, and it's not part of the slide deck, and I should have said it earlier on. Anyone who uses like DEP Notify or Set My Mac who don't have self-service trigger when enrollment is complete, in order for this to appear on devices, you must go into Jamf settings, into global settings, global system settings, and enable that tick box to enable self-service to launch after enrollment. There is a setting there. Please enable that, because when we did some testing, we were like, why isn't this working? And we didn't have that tick box turned on. So you need to do that.
Yep.
Cool. Any more questions?
Yeah, there's one back.
Great presentation. This, as a new Mac admin with hand-me-down DEP Notify, this is super interesting. I just wondered, you mentioned that you'd create all new policies in onboarding. Why is that? And could you have separate policies, say one for faculty staff onboarding and one for lab classroom onboarding?
I had kind of a hard time hearing that. There's a bit of an echo up here.
Yeah.
So the question really was whether or not you can set up a different onboarding plan for faculty members and staff versus students, correct?
In classrooms.
I'm not sure. That's not something that we would have done in NetApp in terms of macOS onboarding.
I think kind
Could
of.
you do it?
I think kind of what I mentioned before. If you can do like an inventory update and possibly during. So here's a good. I'm just thinking of this on the fly, right? While you're doing the device enrollment, when you go into that screen where you put in your credentials and it's at the setup assistant, you have an option to deploy a package to the system. So for example, you can deploy that on the device. That could have some information about what department or what group or classroom or whatever it is that they're in, something that identifies that device. Do an inventory update once that finishes, and once that goes into Jamf, it'll say, okay, this user belongs to these groups. And then you can specify in your targeting here at this window, you can look and say, okay, this goes to this team, this goes to this team. That might be a way you can do it. Again, test it, see if that works. We don't have that exact requirement, but if I were to do it, that's how I would try it.
Yeah.
And obviously, talk to your Jamf buddy. They can walk you through that as well.
Hi, guys. Really great presentation. Another question kind of along the lines of what she was asking about why you would actually rebuild policies. Going from DEP Notify, were there any policies that you found that were commonly used with that you absolutely had to change, or when you were looking at it like this is an area that you really had to reimagine or rethink? Was there anything like glaring with looking at the old policies when you're building new ones, having used DEP Notify previously, that really caught your attention in that optimizing and rebuilding of those?
For us, it was more about resetting. We had our environment just basically built as is since like 2018, and we used DEP Notify for that long. While it was solid for that 6-7 years that we had it, it was just more about us doing cleanup. I mean, if you want to reuse some of your policies, I mean, that's fine. The item that you run into as a risk as part of doing that is making sure that you cut off your existing enrollment experience and then updating those policies to be enabled for the macOS onboarding, right? The things that we talked about, how you have to adjust the scoping and everything. For us, it was easier just to create whole new things and just play it safer and just turn off the old and turn on the new. It was a lot quicker for us. I mean, I suppose you could even do, if you want to be really precise about it, you can do in your policy settings, you can turn off, or you can tell the policies to turn off by a specific time and date and to turn on by a specific time and date, if you want to be that precise.
Also, one of the driving factors for us going from DEP Notify to macOS onboarding, like we used DEP Notify, like it's great, it works. The only thing was, when it didn't work, you had to go through lines of code figuring out what went wrong.
Yeah.
Why didn't it trigger? What's wrong with this policy? And people have made so many other edits to their own custom version of DEP Notify that we just wanted to go to something that obviously Jamf supported. If I had a problem, I could ring up Jamf and tell them to fix it. And I don't have to sit there for hours digging through lines of code. Yep. So that was one of the main driving factors. And also, we had a clunky onboarding experience that we wanted to clean up. So we put all that together and went, let's just make the jump. And we've done it. It's been 2 months. And it's been very successful. Like, it's successful for us. So if we can do it, anyone can do it. Yeah. So
I don't think
there
you
is
should
a
sell you
question
guys
up the
short.
front, and he's eager
This
to
will be the
ask.
last question we have.
So-
Sorry for anybody else, but if you have any other questions, please let us know after the fact. Last question here.
So what I see new in this macOS onboarding is configuration profiles. That was never part of DEP Notify. So I know configuration profiles gets deployed at the end of enrollment. So what's the purpose of this feature over there?
If you had additional,
Because we can use the pre-stage to push configuration
correct, you
profiles.
can use, or else you can do it just with a normal configuration profile. It just gives you the option, because normally with self-service, you can deploy a config profile with self-service. So they've kind of bundled it all into the one now where you want to do it as part of your enrollment, then do it here as well.
Okay.
It's just an additional feature.
Got it.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you so much, everybody.
Great.